On this episode, we talk to a guy that holds a special meaning for many different people. I've always known my guest as Matt, but today I graduated to Tuna. It's interesting who's friends with whom in the age of social media, and his friends always seem to be connected to my friends. However, me and him were never in the same place with those friends. But sitting down with him, you realize, we're pretty good friends. It's just we have to be good friends when we hang out together. It's not an ideal situation, but it's a solid friendship nonetheless. We also talk about every type of dad. Let's jump in. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a Moderately Good podcast. I'm going to go ahead and do my shout outs real quick. So we have Joe Andrade Media. He does all my cool pictures and cool videos that are not in here. My guy, Jason, he has Wish Pocket. That's why the audio sounds so good. He's my audio engineer, for like a fancy word. My guy, Jaron, he has No Names Originals. That's where you can find him on Instagram. He is a local artist in North Carolina. He does custom bleach clothing and custom art. So support local North Carolina artists. And my guy, Mo, he has the Go Bubble app, and if you use the promo code Go Moderately, you get a discount. And then last but not least, my newest sponsor, it's Lone Sun Decor. It's my guy Peyton. He does like really cool like wood. He does some art for me in here. Really hand painted and just cool Aztec-y type stuff. I don't know. Just go check it out. It's cool shit. I mean, I'm endorsing it. It has to be cool shit. Before we started and as this thing will go on tonight, my guest and I were discussing like how exactly do we know each other. And I know him as Matt, but a good portion of his friends know him as Tuna. Mm-hmm. What's up, Matt?
What's up, man?
So how come I don't know you as Tuna? Who calls you Tuna? Should I be calling you Tuna?
You can.
So one, I have permission.
No, I will answer to it. If you call me Tuna, I'll answer to it.
But I wonder why I've never called you Tuna.
So Tuna,
I think this has a lot to do with our relationship and how we're always in the same place, but never really noticing each other in the same place.
We're with the same crowd, but never in the same place.
Right. So who calls you Tuna?
So Tuna came from my boy Coach. We were going out for New Year's, and I called him because we were supposed to go do sushi that night, and then we were doing bottle service downtown with a bunch of friends. So I called him up to find out what time I was picking him up, and when he picks up the phone, he goes, "Sup, Tuna?" He is a Miami Dolphins fan. Bill Parcells was the coach. So I think he thought I looked like his son or something like that. He said it as a joke. It took off all through downtown.
So you're telling me right now that your celebrity lookalike is Bill Parcells?
Possibly. Minus the money and the accolades, but yes.
It's not bad.
No. But and then so he said that, and then he started telling people, and then they made a Facebook page called Words with Tuna. And we would go downtown, and bartenders would hear somebody call me Tuna and go, "Oh my God, you're Tuna." I mean, I got free drinks and shit for 6 months, a year. I was like, I'm just going to ride this Tuna wave. Well, it just stayed.
That's so crazy that I just that the first time I knew that people called you Tuna was maybe going to some of these Houston Texans watch parties and stuff like that. Somebody kind of said it, and I remember kind of thinking who's that guy? And then being oh, that's Matt? Oh, okay. And not realizing that. So, but I mean, it's just so wild that we have a lot of the same friends and we run around a lot of the same, but just never really kind of next to each other and just not, well, I'm glad to be in the Tuna circle now.
You're one of the few guys that calls me Matt. Did you know that?
Burns, they call me by their last name.
So I introduce myself differently depending on who I'm talking to.
Well, I mean,
So to women, I introduced myself as
back in the day, you must have only been Matt. Like back when we became.
no, it was Burns. I was Burns all through college.
Well, I don't know what I'm
So I
doing.
introduced myself as Matt to women, Burns to guys. And then in a professional setting, they all know me as Matt. So if I hear a guy call me Matt, I think it's about work. So I have to turn that switch on to tone down the douchebaggery.
I got you, Tuna.
And then not my niece just found out that I'm called Tuna. So now that I see her, she goes, "Say Tuna," because Meadow calls me Tuna. And I told her, I said, "Hey, we're going to hang out with them. They only know me as Tuna." She goes, "Who's Tuna?" And I go, "Me." She goes, "They call you Tuna?" So now she calls me Tuna every time I see her.
So I think, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but my dad is one of 7, and I have an uncle, and I did not know what his real name was until I was like way an adult. And his real name is Gerald, right?
Uh-huh.
But I knew him as my Uncle Piggy.
Uncle Piggy.
And the story goes that like the first time he went to school, the teacher was like, "Gerald," and he was like, "My name is Piggy." And they were like, "Your name is Gerald." He's like, "My name is Piggy." That's the story. I don't know if it's true.
I mean, I've had buddies' parents that I went to high school with, and the friends called me Burns. And so when I'd come back into town from college, they'd be like, "Hey, I'm going over to Matt's house." He would just say Matt. And they go, "Who the hell is Matt?" And he goes, "Burns." They go, "Burns' first name is Matt?" I'm like, Burns isn't his first name.
Who named their kid Burns?
You'd be surprised.
Well, like you can kind of tell who knows me at what time, because like now I primarily go by Scotty.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, a lot of people have known me as Scott, and my mom calls me Scott. My dad calls me Scott. You know what I mean? So it's weird. Like, you start living that like Tuna persona. You go, "I am Tuna." Then people call you Tuna. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I've got so many nicknames that I Senator. I got called Krang for a while because of my big head. They thought I looked like that brain from Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
So I've been called a lot of things.
One of my friends calls me Scotty G Funk. My gamer tag is Scotty Super G.
Does anybody ever say Gassner?
I would get the only time I really got Gassner was in like athletics and the fraternity, and like people in the fraternity call me Gassner now. But like that's
you never got called Gas or some abbreviation, some joke.
People made fun of my name constantly.
I was like, bro, there's so many setups on that name.
I know, like it wasn't a great name to grow up with as a child.
Buddy, have Burns.
I mean, that's not.
And then get burnt. Go get sunburnt.
Oh, Matt Sunburnt.
Well, and then I'm the oldest of 3, so I'm also first degree burns.
Stupid.
My mom calls me first degree. My mom calls me her favorite oldest son. And then my dad calls me Matty Ray. I don't know where the Matty Ray came from.
Is your middle name Ray?
Alan. His brother is named Ray.
Okay.
And then I've got a baby name, but I ain't gonna say it on here because I'm about to get that out in the ether.
I can bleep it out. You can just tell me.
No, so my mom says it's one, but I think it's another. And so my mom will say it to me if I'm just in that, like if it's just the family there, my mom will say it. If anybody that's not part of the immediate 5, she won't say it. But my dad will call me Matty Ray.
Now I just want to call you Matty Ray Allen.
It's like a pop star.
Yeah. When's your first hit coming out? When's your first single?
Please, I need some of that scratch.
Okay, so like I have a question for you, and then like I don't know. I don't have an answer, so I don't know if you have an answer.
Okay.
How did we meet?
How did we meet?
Mm-hmm.
James Bearden.
Is it James?
Because James knew everybody in San Marcos as a DJ, party hopping, this and that.
But me and James DJ'd together.
See, that I didn't know. I didn't know that you DJ'd. I do know that you knew him. And James took me under his wing because James is 2 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
And so James took me under his wing and kind of introduced me to everybody. Like my fraternity, Pi Kappa Phi, we were small as shit.
Mm-hmm.
But me and James just clicked. Both older of 3. You know, at the time, the only difference between the two of us, in my opinion, was one was white and one was black. That was it. I had to have met you. Did you DJ with Murdoch?
Mm-hmm. I work for Murdoch.
Okay. So it would have had to, because James introduced me to Murdoch very early on. So I met James 98. Probably didn't become cool with him till about 2000. Because I was pledging fall of 98, so I was doing my thing. And then coming up in fraternity, I was bushy tail and green eyed and wanted to expand. And then I was like, nobody knows who we are. I'm going to go out there and put our name on the map. Like, you guys are okay with being 40 strong. I'm not. I come from a high school of 1,000 people. My graduating class that I knew 75% of.
Right.
40 people is just a classroom for me in high school.
Right.
And so I went out and it was like, but I never understood the exclusivity thing of it. And so I would hang with James. James would take me, he took me to SE parties and when he was DJing it, I was just his assistant. So I got to come in, drink free, the girls.
Man, God. I would rather have there was an assistant job?
No, it wasn't.
Why did I not have an assistant? Man, this is bullshit.
Well, James was just like, hey man.
James is smart.
James was like, hey man, SAE still want a party night? We got free drink, girls everywhere. How do I get in? He goes, well, you got to be an SAE. And I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I can't walk in with those on. And then he goes, actually, tell you what, I'm just going to say you're my assistant. Just help bring my DJ stuff. Help me with, and then just stand by the DJ booth. And so I became his request person.
Oh, what a great job.
So when the DJ's tired of hearing, play R. Kelly Ignition, woohoo! And he's like, man, I'm sick of these bitches saying that. And so I would just think, okay, cool. And then I would just make a list. And after a while, it was just tally marks next to those. I'm like, James, we have 15 requests for this song. At a certain point, you got to put this on, or I'm going to have a mob of bitches after me.
Wow. I needed one of those. I didn't have anybody doing that with me.
Funny.
I drove deal with every girl myself.
We drove my car. So we would load his shit into my car to go to the square or go to the party.
But you could look at that one of two ways. You could look at it as like, oh, James was using me. No. Or you could look at it that like in that situation, both of y'all benefit. What one of my friends calls that a fair exchange.
It is.
It's a very fair exchange.
It's a fair exchange of non-commerce related goods.
Well, but I think that's what real friendship is.
It's a give and a take.
But it's not like the person doesn't overtake, right? And they take fairly, and then your friend knows when he's got to give you more because like maybe you're broke with your girlfriend or something like that. Like he knows when he's got to step in more, but then you don't talk to him maybe for 2 weeks or whatever, right? You know what I mean? It's just like this ebb and flow of a thing.
Oh yeah.
But like I think that people get caught up in the semantics of shit and they start sabotaging those relationships.
I think they start scorekeeping.
In a way.
It's like, hey, Scott, I did this and this and this, and you did this. Like, when are you going to meet me?
Okay, let me ask you something. Has James ever done something and you're kind of like, ooh, buddy, that's like borderline, like maybe that you owe me $100 or something. Like he has ever done something you're like, okay, like we're cool, we're boys, but like that's a little much. That's a little rich. Like, is he ever?
Funny thing is we never drew lines in the sand about.
No, but you shouldn't.
But my point being is we never, there was never, at least internally, like when I say draw lines in the sand, internally about where kind of your breaking point is, like, hey, you went too far with this with a certain kind of ass. And so he and I have just always seen eye to eye. We've always just told, like, if I needed him for something, he was there. We were roommates for 3 years.
But I think that
he's never done something to answer your question. No.
So that would tell me that like, that y'all equally respect each other and it's never abused, which is what that should be.
Right.
If you're ever having a question, like what you're giving to the other person, you're like, do I really want to like be doing this? Like, is this person in my camp? Like that tight?
I'm
like,
doing a lot of giving here.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and what you get value in return. And I think that relationship can change too. I think people can change. And then you hold on to old ideas of what somebody was, and then now they're taking advantage of it.
Yeah, that was something. When I got to San Marcos, I was a social butterfly. And so I went out, wanted to be friends. And now that I'm 43 years old, my circle's dwindled on purpose because of the point you just made.
You only got so much time, bro. I don't want to be wasting that shit.
But I noticed I was giving and trying to. I'm a people pleaser. I know that. I will take care of others before I take care of myself. I know that. And so I realized I was doing more for others, and it wasn't being reciprocated. So what I started doing was testing the theory. If they asked and I said no, hey, I can't do it. I'm busy doing something else. Blah blah blah. And then I slowly stopped hearing from them. Okay, that wasn't a real friendship then. Take you off the table, take you off the plate. And I've slowly been doing that for the past few years.
You got to.
Well, it was wearing me down because...
This is what you did. You closed your bandwidth and you go, this is my bandwidth.
Yeah.
This is what I can take. That's all you did. And that's appropriate. I mean, you can't be doing everything for everybody all the time.
Oh, no. And it's not an off topic for me, my daughter. It is a sensitive one because I've spoken to her once in 3 years. So that I will tell you, it will tug at heartstrings. Like I'll choke up.
Oh, will you cry?
I will tell you, I'm
not laughing at the fact that this is what I'll say. I'll say, you really know that someone's really saying some shit if they get super emotional, right?
I'll get quiet.
Yeah,
I'll give me, because I have been the oldest of three, and I was when my uncle was murdered, I had to go be there for my brother because my mom was trying to be there for my dad.
Right.
So I don't know how to grieve in that regard. I go into protection mode. So when I feel tears coming on, I get angry to where I'm like, fuck, or I just shut down for a minute. I mean, I'll tear up and I'll cry, but I couldn't tell you the last time I just had a full blown out ball session. And until I had my daughter, I had never cried. Never.
I'd agree with that. I always cried. Like I've always been a crier, but my daughter's made me more of a crier.
Do me a favor, watch the movie Moana.
I already have.
Oh God, did you lose your friggin' mind?
Do you know what movie I lost my mind on? Like thinking about like kind of my daughter. This is like, have you seen the movie Soul with Jamie Foxx?
No.
Okay, so it's like a newer cartoon, but the idea is that like you shouldn't waste your time like here on Earth, like and what you're meant here to do, or whatever. And like watching that movie with her made me cry. But I mean, I like, what was another? There was another.
Moana made me lose it because when she left the island to go out on her own, it was, I was crying happy tears, but it was like my daughter when she finally gets out from under mom and dad and she goes out into the world on her own. Like I was looking that far ahead and she was like 6 or 7 and I couldn't help but think about it. And me and my mom were having a conversation. My daughter's watching the movie, just having a blast. And I had to get up and walk out. Mom was like, "You're right." And I said, "Mom, leave me alone. Like, just give me a minute. Like I can't." And then I came back in and I apologized. Like, "I'm sorry." And she goes, "What's wrong?" I go, "It just made me think of when Simone's older."
Yeah.
And so it ripped right. And then at one point I got mad. My mom one time was like, I was cussing. She was like, "Why are you cussing?" "Where the fuck do all these tears come from?" Like,
Dude, look, this is my biggest thing. My biggest thing is that her mom is creative. I'm creative. She's probably going to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
But the world is just like slowly going to beat that out of you. The outside world.
Yes.
And that kind of stuff makes me spontaneously cry. Like when I think about like how sweet right now she is to strangers and just how polite she is. And innocent and just so like, I don't want her to lose any of that. And I don't want her to, part of the reason why like I do this podcast is to like just set an example that you can do these things. Right. Yeah. Like it's like this. Like this is what I thought of the other day. You know how always like there's like the really popular like musician or singer or whatever, but like he got influenced because his mom or she got influenced because his mom or dad like play the piano in church or some shit.
Yeah.
That's like it feels like that like those parents gave their kids permission to do. You know what I mean? And so I want to try to like give her permission to be creative. Like this helps me. So why wouldn't it help her?
I think also to that point right there, it sees that even at your age, you can, when she's growing, if she feels the creative gene, the creativeness trying to leave her, it's like, look, dad's still doing this at his age.
And,
like,
and her mom is super creative. She paints all the time.
But they're still doing it. So the creative can stay. Like, it's okay to be creative. It's okay to be unique. In fact, be unique. Don't be part of the sheeple. Be unique.
But the world is going to try to beat that out of you constantly.
Be creative on how to skirt it.
I mean, I thought about this the other day, and I don't know how to word it, but basically, like, you're the only one that should be and probably does care about you being you. Everyone else wants you to be something else. You're the only person that is fighting for you to be yourself. And that's a really hard fight because you're fighting everything in that way, right?
My dad told me one time that, you know, I understand, and it was a long time ago, and he probably doesn't remember if I brought it up to him, but it was, everybody has their own problems, their own issues, and their own concerns. The only person that you should care about or the only person that should matter is in the mirror. Everybody else is secondary. Me, your mom, your brothers, everybody else is secondary. You only have to prove to yourself. That's it. And so you coming out and keeping your creative going out, and mom's still going out and doing her thing, she's going to see that gene run wild. And I think with a house, it's inviting of it and encouraging. Kid, that gene's not going anywhere in that kid.
You know, like, this is not me blaming my parents, but like, I mean, like I was kind of a weird kid in the sense of like, I did art and like all this other stuff that most kids in my hometown and most kids my age didn't do. And I don't know if my parents really knew how to nurture that. Does that make sense?
Not in the it does, because in the times that we were growing up, you were an oddity. We didn't have the internet to expand and showcase that. Yeah. You were the needle in the haystack.
Well, you felt like, you know, the good thing, I guess, I don't know if it's a good thing. A positive thing maybe about the internet and social media is that it allows you to find people like you. Because back in the day, it just felt like there was you, and that's it.
And right? Especially if you came from a small town, you may be the one of two people that have an interest like that. Your circle's that big.
I mean, it's
literally that big. But you come, you know, living in town, Houston, San Antonio, a major city, you can go to a show or something like an exhibit or something like that, and you can run into somebody.
Hey, I have a question for you.
Okay.
So, are you and your dad close?
Yes.
Like, have y'all always been close?
Dad's Superman to me. So to answer your question, we don't say I love you to each other. I say I love you to my mom and my two brothers. That's not how we were with my dad. But I do love my dad. Like, when I go to San Antonio sometimes to just go see my brother, my niece, my parents, me, my dad, my brothers will go hang out and have beers just to hang out. And it's one of the funnest things. Because we just start telling, like, I'll tell a story and my dad will look at me and go, when did you do that? And so we'll sit there for 3-4 hours until we're like, all right, I'm about 5 beers deep.
That's the fun part about being older, you know, with your parents and still have your parents and being older. At least on like my end, like, sorry, mom and dad, I just stopped giving a fuck. Like, I was like, I'm just going to be myself. Like, I'm not going to try to act like I'm perfect or that I'm still doing everything like right all the time. Like, I'm just going to be me, mistakes and all. Stories, whatever else it is.
My dad,
but a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't open up to their parents like that. You know what I mean?
I can't open up to my dad.
But I mean, you said
I can open up surface level. My in-depth, deep emotions, deep down, that's my mama.
Hey, so I really don't know if my parents listen to my podcast. It doesn't bother me. But my number one favorite thing that I have done with my dad is my dad is not an I love you person, and he's not a physical person, or he wasn't. But I just started like I would just go in, and before I leave, I'd go, I love you, Dad. And I'd give him like a big hug, and he wouldn't say anything at first. And since my grandfather passed, and like now that we have my nephew and my daughter and stuff, he's way more like in touch with his feelings. You know what I mean? But before, I would just force him to hug me.
So
I would just go, I love you, Dad. He'd go, okay, I'll see you later.
Me and my dad, usually, if we hug, it's more often than not, it's a side hug.
Yeah. Just go. Hey, next time, just grab him. Just give him a big old bear hug.
Well, but a lot of times we'll come in and I'll go over his shoulder. My dad's 6'4". That's hard to. I'm 6 foot.
You're like squat down.
Yeah. But no, me and my dad are very close. Me and my dad are very close. I mean, I talk to my mom probably 2 or 3 times a week, and I talk to my dad once a week. My dad's not to talk on the phone. Like, he's like, you got 30 minutes once a week, get it out, because I don't want to be on the phone talking. Because we're guys, we can catch up, and we can not talk for a month. Give me 45 minutes, and we can get completely caught up.
What would happen if you just like the next time you just saw your dad, you just told him you loved him? What would happen?
He'd say it back.
Would he?
Yeah, he'd say it back.
So y'all have said it to each other.
We've said it to each other,
but it's not very often.
So every time I see my mom, when I see her and I leave San Antonio, I say I love you.
Uh-huh.
Whenever I'm on the phone with my mom, I say I love you. My 2 brothers, when we get off the phone or we see each other, say I love you. We don't say it to Dad. Dad doesn't say it to the boys. But there's no question that we love him, and there's zero question that he doesn't love us.
I get it 100%.
But it's weird saying it. I think in my head, it's weird saying it up
to him
in the hierarchy, the family hierarchy. I mean, he's dad.
Yeah,
I can say it even to my brothers. Male hierarchy.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't say it to my grandparents. I didn't say it to my grandfathers. My grandmothers I did. But I didn't say it to my grandfathers.
Do you wish you would have?
Yes. My mom's dad before I understood the I love you thing.
Sure, yeah.
I was middle school. I hadn't understood then. My dad's dad, so my dad's family, they were not a feelings family.
Yeah.
He could go 2 years without talking to one of his brothers like it was nothing. Like, that happens frequently.
Isn't that crazy?
I have to talk to my brothers, even if it's text messages. I've got a brother that lives in Round Rock. We lived across the street from each other on Palmer. And didn't see each other for a year. Texted all the time. Never made sense to me.
Well, I think that if you roll the clock back and you go, really before like the telephone will say, you had to like drive to go see fucking people or mail them a letter. The telephone changed a lot of that.
Yeah.
But then texting made it another jump of this communication that is acceptable form. The unfortunate part about it is you're getting further and further away from like people unless it's kind of like a video call.
Yeah.
But even then, it feels kind of, you have to do Zoom calls for work?
Zoom Teams, yeah.
Oh, they're horrible, right? How do you feel about them? How do you feel about Zoom meetings?
Simple. Camera off. I don't want you to see my apartment. Or I put blurred background.
I just like imagine like, and I know you don't do this, but like, there's just like one of those towers of beer cans like that have been drank,
like in college.
Yeah,
and all the highlighter bottles.
Yeah, or whatever. Hey, yeah, and then it's a blurred background, but somebody on the call's like, that really looks like a stack of fucking cans in the back, man. You're like, no, that's like, it's just that's
no.
It's a reflection on the window.
I'm facing downtown. That's the Frost Bank.
That's the Frost Bank building. You're getting it confused.
No, it's I've never liked how my voices sound on a microphone.
Me neither.
That's why one of the reasons I was nervous to do this was like, I wonder how I'm going to sound. Like I've heard because I was born in Amarillo. I only lived there until I was 6, then we moved to San Antonio. I have been told, I can't hear it obviously, but if I have a couple drinks, or depending on if I start going further north in Texas, or option 3, I'm on a microphone, my twang comes out.
Yeah, I mean, I get that.
And so
but I also have those same. I would say it's the same kind of 3. You know what I mean? So it's like, I mean, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, but I would hear my voice on a mic, and I'm like, ugh.
Well, one,
I don't like to hear myself talk.
Jason, the guy that does all my audio for the podcast, is fucking amazing, and so he'll make you sound like really good. But 2, I've had a lot of comments from people that are like, "Oh my God, I didn't know my voice sounded like that." Like they'd never heard their voice and they're like, "Oh, I talk like this or whatever." And I was like, "That's the way I feel." Yeah. Now this is what happens when I'm like editing a podcast. I'm like, guest, meet guest. Like I don't even like really listening to my part. I'll kind of skip over it and go, hey, next question or whatever, and like just kind of see what the guest said when I'm doing a review.
Yeah.
Anyways. Oh, really? Oh, and also, have you ever heard Randy Moss or Jason Williams talk?
Oh, you mean the backwoods West Virginia boys?
Yes.
Y'all better tell about my dad.
I mean, like,
Hey, Susie Colbert.
It's like when he was in high school, like he goes, yeah, I just was going out there. Nobody was big as me. I scored 6 touchdowns. And then I was just like, oh, that's Randy Moss.
And then Jason Williams has the greatest country hood talk. Like he's got twang with slang.
I like that. I would consider myself a very twang with slang. You grew up in San Antonio. You have to have twang with slang.
Mine is more speaking Spanish.
You speak Spanish?
Yeah. Not bring it back. So I took 2 years in middle school, 3 years in high school.
But you live in San Antonio.
4 semesters in college. And I learned more Spanish from the 2 roommates I had. One was from Monterrey and the other was from Laredo. And I learned, and we would only speak Spanish to each other in the house so I could learn it.
So when my dad was a farmer, okay, and the gentlemen that worked on our farm were from Mexico, okay, and they spoke only Spanish, right? So when I was a little kid and we would go out to the farm, my dad would talk to them in Spanish, right? And I was like, holy shit. Like this guy,
language. Who are you?
This guy knows Spanish, right? But then as I got older and like I took like Spanish in high school and shit, and then I would go out with my dad, I was like, this guy doesn't know shit. Like he just knew words and phrases in order to get like what needed to be done in the field or what needed to be fixed. He understood Spanish, but he just spoke this very broken Spanish. But as a kid, I was like, wow, he speaks Spanish.
Well, also, hang on a second. So the Spanish they teach you, at least when we were growing up, was from Spain.
Oh, motherfuckers.
Well,
what am I supposed to do with that?
You're not speaking Spanish from south of the border, which has a different dialect, a different slang to it.
I just feel like that should be illegal. So British people think they speak perfect English. Yet we speak with the y'alls, the ain'ts, the slangs. Yeah.
So we are that's why they consider us below them, because we took English and then convoluted it, which is essentially.
I don't even know the reason not to like British people.
Yeah, I mean, here's what it is. But point being is that's so the Spanish we learned proper Spanish,
which is useless.
Like they use vosotros. In Spain. Mexico doesn't use it. Mexico's 5 hours away.
I mean, I feel like that, okay, I don't know. Maybe if you live in New York, you can learn, Spanish. But if you're living in Texas, we need to learn Mexico Spanish.
Yes.
Like, why are we learning Spain Spanish?
One thing that always made me laugh was in high school when they were like pick a language and people like I had friends pick Latin. I go, not a dead language. The hell are you learning it for? Like you're not unless you're going in to be like a priest or something like that where you've got to read Latin from scripture. Latin's not really there anymore.
Is that the most useless language?
Sanskrit.
Oh.
It's a 5,000-year-old dead language. You probably see Latin once a day and don't even realize it.
Where?
A dollar bill.
Oh, I don't have money. I just have credit cards and
You got
shit.
this big ass podcast. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And they just throw
Spotify's calling tomorrow.
They throw cash at me constantly.
But I think it should be in Texas. I'm sorry, it should be a friggin' requirement. Spanish. Learn another culture, and the closest culture to you is that of a Hispanic heritage. Especially if you're Houston, San Antonio, the Valley. I think it should be required. I think there should be financial classes that should be required. Home ec? Teach me how to make a cake? Teach me that. Show me how to change a tire.
Well,
I mean, I know how to do it because my dad taught me, but there are people that don't have fathers.
You know what's crazy is I just thought about this the other day. I was like, I'm going to teach my daughter how to change a tire on a car. I was like, that might be about, I can't change my own oil. That might be about as manly as I get in that sense. But I was like, it would be really important that would be a good thing to know. You know what I mean?
It was one I wanted to teach my daughter. You know, and eventually, you know, if her and I reconnect, I would like to teach her and my son. My son doesn't drive right now, but it's one that flat tires are one of the most common roadside issues. Yet, middle of the night on a dark road, and you're waiting for AAA, why not do it yourself? But to that point,
I knew
your daughter's coming home from work one night. She needs to know how to do that.
Is the thing that messes you up the most about your daughter is that you are not allowed to be her dad because you and your dad have such a close relationship and you cherish that and you don't get to do that role for her. Is that what really kind of tears you up?
So to kind of take it a step back, I wasn't allowed to be in her life the first year and a half. I had to take her mom to court.
God
for
damn.
paternity. So I'll file for paternity. And then I got to start seeing her. And I call her Bam Bam. Very first time I got to hold her, I had to get supervised visitation, and we're walking around this place up in Georgetown.
Really quickly, you had to get supervised because they thought you could possibly not be the father?
No, because I hadn't been around her. They weren't just going to drop her off to me. Her mom said something like that, where because I wasn't a father yet, that I needed to be supervised to understand what's going on.
Wow.
My argument was, did you need supervised visitation after you gave birth to your first child? Or did you have to learn just the way every other parent has had to learn?
Yeah.
So I went to supervised visitation. We're walking around, hanging out, and she keeps looking at me like, you know, kids even at that age, 1.5, 2, just like your daughter, they're very intuitive.
Oh, yeah.
They may not have the words for it, but they can understand and they have certain feelings and they hone in on it. And my daughter, she just kept looking at me like I know him. She had this I know him look. I don't know where, but I know him. So we're walking around and we're kind of walking around this little property up in Georgetown. And we turned away and we turned back. We hit heads hard. Bam. And I was like, ow, bam, bam. And she smiled. That was the first time I got her to smile. So every time after that, I would butt our heads together and say, Bam Bam. So she knew who it was. So I've called her that forever. I was in her life up until kind of hell broke out in 2020-ish. It's only COVID. I can't remember when it was. Last time I saw her was April 29th, 2021. I didn't see her again until her birthday, August 30th, 2022. And I have not heard from her or spoken to her since. And I've reached out, but I don't get a response. I say all that to go to your question. it bothers me because my dad was such a great dad, and he showed me, even though he raised 3 boys, showed me what it'd like to be a father. And I didn't get to do it. Now with my son, I get to do that. He's my stepson. I mean, his mom are not together, but he's still my son. I've been in his life since he's 4 years old. He's 17. I mean, that's my little buddy, even though he's taller than me. But I still get to be a dad. My dad has done such a great job, and his dad and so forth, that I almost thought I was letting my family down in that regard.
Sure.
As a father, like, you've been given this gift. What have you done with it?
Right.
And it's like, I haven't done anything to squander it. And so we try not to talk about it at home. It's a tough subject. We'll tell old stories, laugh, joke. We won't go in depth. We won't talk. It's still a very open wound. And so it hurts. There's times I'll be in a car and a song will come on. And it's like, the worst one is Tim McGraw's Daddy's Girl.
Oh, well, yeah.
Change this shit right now. I can't hear it. I'm driving. Can't hear it. It should always be Daddy's Girl. And eventually she'll come around. And I pray on it every night. I pray that she's doing well. She's safe. She's listening. Every night I pray that she's doing well. She's listening to her mother. She's going to school. And I'm here when you're ready. And we're going to have some tough talks down the road. But whether it's tomorrow or she's 20 and she turns 13 in August.
I mean, it's hard to explain to people that don't have children what it's like to have a child. You know what I mean? What that means, stuff like that. We don't have to go in like depths of it. But like, I have a newfound place inside of me for people that lose relationships with their kids, because my daughter's so young and we like have this relationship right now. I can't imagine like not having it. Like that's a really scary, shitty fucking thing. You know what I mean? And so, so one, my heart goes out to you, but two, like, I mean, it would be nice if this never was a problem for anybody, that all the parents and all the kids could always be connected, stuff like that. But unfortunately, it just doesn't. And it doesn't mean it has to always be that way. Like you said, it means there can be a change.
My thing is we talked about it earlier about me shrinking my circle. And the guys that I've got in my circle, that have kids, they all, like Paul and Jess, Meadow calls me Uncle Tuna.
Yeah.
She's going to be blown away the day she finds out my name is really Matt. But like my brothers and their daughters, I still get to be that fatherly figure to some degree.
Well, you get to have influence the way your dad influenced you.
And so, my son's 17. He's getting to I remember 17. It wasn't cool to hang out with my dad. It just wasn't. I wanted to hang out with my friends, and I was interested in girls. I wanted to go party, and so I still get those, with Meadow, with my niece Kaya, with my niece Coraline, with my niece Maggie, Felix and his kids. When they see me, they come up and hug me. My buddy Adrian, his kids hug me. My buddy Stuart, their kids come up and hug me. So I still get to be that in some capacity. I may not be their father in any regards, but I still get to see that. I still get to be a part of that.
I mean, look, I love my daughter more than almost anything on this planet. But like, look, it's really great to not have your own kids and just be uncle. Like that's a really badass job.
Well,
there is no, you don't need a babysitter when you're uncle. I mean, you are the babysitter. If you're watching the kid, you are the babysitter. If not, you can go out and do whatever you want to. Parents can't do that. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's, and all the guys that I hang out with, they've seen the struggles, and, they'll ask and they'll apologize. And I go, don't apologize for asking. I appreciate you asking. And but that's as far as we're going to, but I'll let them know that's as far as we're going to talk about this. Like, I don't, and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like,
yes, man, I know you don't show feelings.
Well, it's not the show feelings part. It's, I just drove to Houston to hang out with the guys.
Yeah.
We're not talking about that. I'm not trying to get all cry emotional right now.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to call me Monday, Tuesday when you're out of work and you want to know more, call me.
Well, and I we could argue that compartmentalizing is bad or good, but in what you're saying, you're like, look, if we're going to an Astros game, I want to go to an Astros game.
I want to have some beers.
I want to have some beers. I want to have some hot dogs. I want to see some home runs. I want to see some strikeouts. I want to have a really good time. I didn't come, if I wanted to like be depressed about a situation that I'm in or something like that, I could have just stayed home and not spent all this money. Like, I'm at a game, so I'm going to be at a game. I can process this other later.
Because it'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah, because like it's not going nowhere.
Yeah, I mean,
and there's no amount of worrying during an Astros game about it that is going to, you know what I'm saying, fix it. There's not, you know what I mean. So you might as well just put it aside.
And it was something we talked about earlier. Being a people pleaser, I one of the things when I moved out from me and my ex is I got back to focusing on me, and so I can't. While I love my daughter. And I miss her every day, all day. I'm not going to sit around and waste my life waiting.
Well,
when you're ready, I'm here.
You're waiting, but you're not putting your life on hold.
But I'm living.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're all waiting for things.
Yeah.
But if you're going to stop your entire life to wait for this one thing, whatever that is, that just now you are stuck.
Yeah.
Like, because life doesn't give a shit. It's going to keep fucking going.
It's going to punch you.
You're going to stay right here. It's just going to hit you like fucking tidal waves until you decide to move, basically.
Yeah.
Right? But some people are stubborn, man. Some people don't want to move. Or some people get stuck on an idea or something. Like, yeah,
So the amount of depression, I know when I wrote something to you, you don't understand how the amount of violence it took to be this gentle, the amount of anger and hate. And, I kind of live a lot of my life like smiles, tears of a clown. I don't burden people with my problems. I deal with them on my own. I don't talk about them. Unless I talk to my mom about them. My mom is my rock in that regard. When I have a wave that hits me thinking about my daughter, I call mom, and we go through the pain together. But I don't talk to anybody else about it. Nobody.
There's just one side note that I just want to point out. It's so awesome that you have that relationship with your mother. And you only get one mom and you only get one dad, right? And unless the event that made you not want to connect them was just so egregious, there's things I could understand. Like, if it's small shit, you should try to create that relationship with your parent.
Oh yeah.
For all the reasons that you're saying, try to make that work, because it's very special. Not a lot of people. Some people don't get their parents very long. Some people lose their parents really early and don't get you're we say you're 43.
43. See.
So it's
my dad turned 70 this year.
You're getting all this time. You know what I mean?
One of the things is it breaks my heart for people that don't have that relationship. That's all I know.
I have a friend that lost his mom when he was 26, and he is now 42, and that shit affects him every day.
I'd be a wreck.
That's what I'm saying.
That would. I mean, even if I lost my mom and I was 70, that would affect me.
Sure.
My mom's always been my rock.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can't talk to her about. Obviously, I don't go into details about my life. I tell her to a degree when I want advice, when I need help, when I need a shoulder. Because some of the things I want to work out on my own, but it's being the oldest. It was I didn't want to let my brothers down. 2, I didn't want to let my parents down. So I held in a lot of feelings growing up, a lot of it. I didn't recently start, I probably would say within the past 10 years, to become at least more vocal, especially to my mom and my dad. But still, it's not all, I don't let everything out.
Well, I mean, I don't want to say it's baby steps, but I mean, if you're only here in the last 10 years, I mean, that's a big movement in a relatively short period of time, if that makes sense.
Well, but the thing is, we've always been close. Even when I was in college, even when I got, but I think it wasn't anything to do that my parents did. I needed to trust more in them. Not that I didn't trust that they would give me bad advice. It's not trusting them. I needed to trust in myself, that it's okay to talk about these things instead of bottling them up. I would just bottle them up, write them down, get them out of my head. And then it was like, all right, let's go back to my day.
Well, I think a lot of people, okay, I think there's a scale. I think some people talk to their parents too much about too much shit and they're too close. They're
closing in on the friend status of parents.
Well, it's like there's no boundaries really, right? And then you go to the opposite end and all it is fucking just boundaries of whatever. And the sweet spot's like kind of in the middle, right? You know what I mean? You should be able to, laugh and joke and have conversations at the same time, be able to tell them like, hey, I don't like it when you do that with my daughter, so don't do that anymore. And that's
the funny thing is I did that to my mom once, and I got snapped back. She goes, "This is my house." Even if I think she probably respects that. I mean, she's a mom. Mm-hmm. She, you have a dad. Like, she respects that you want that for your child, and like you can do it in a very polite way, and you might get some clap back. I snapped at her. So,
but you know what I'm saying? Like, it might turn out that way. But it doesn't mean that it's necessarily like wrong. Just go about it, and you have to know your parent too. Like what connects us as people is that idea of like our imperfections and all the things, right? And so like when you hide those, like we won't get back to like hugs and saying I love you. It's there. Like we all know it's here. Mm-hmm. We're gonna just like ignore this big ass elephant room. Or we're gonna say I love you. Are we gonna do this shit or what? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like I don't know. Taking advantage of those moments and being very clear about your communication brings it up, I guess.
The communication just in general. I'm a communications major, and you'd be surprised how lack of communication I have being a communication major.
Well, but it's one thing to communicate. Like, this wasn't like you didn't take classes in like how to communicate with your family. You took classes on how to communicate with like business people
or a salesman.
Yeah, or what? But that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not like, okay, like you walk into this class and it's like, this class is called How to Communicate with Your Family, and everybody's failing.
Trust me, you're going to start this.
Nobody passes my class. Nobody
passes. You're going to start with an F and you're going to end with an F.
You're going to start with an F and end up with a Z. Yeah. That's how shitty of a communicator
you go backwards from the first day.
So usually how I wrap this thing up is I ask people basically what they do to be the best version of themselves so they can take care of the people around them. So you travel a shit ton. So what? And you said you just got back from traveling and that like you were like glad to be back in your bed.
Yes.
So like, what do you do to make sure that you can be good to do all this traveling and all this shit you do?
Well, it's, I spent so much time living a sedentary life, and I still do to a degree, but it's one that I've actually started working on to eat better, focus better, start even just getting out and walking.
Yeah.
Golfing as much as I do, it helps because, I'm walking around on the course out there. But I'm just trying to find ways to be better, not only for me personally, for longevity, but.
Well, let me ask you this, like, so you're 43. Mm-hmm. Has anything in the last like 3 to 4 years like hit you where you're like, man, like it's important that I like take care of myself because this shit ain't gonna always be. Are you not there yet?
No, I'm thinking of, I've got a couple responses. It's so one, I started smoking when I was 16 and I quit smoking when I was 36. And the reason I did was because one day I guess I had been smoking too much. You know, I was stressed, anxious, blah, blah, blah. And I went to go hug my daughter. And, you know, smoke stays on your clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I had smoked so much that I just reeked. And as a smoker, you can't smell it.
Yeah.
I went to go hug my daughter and she pushed me away. And I went, at that moment, I was like, never again will I go get a hug from my daughter and get pushed away. Now, as far as, so I quit smoking on that. I picked up dipping, which is not bad.
Or at least you don't smell like smoke.
Yeah. But I would say over the past couple of years, I have just noticed the increase in weight. I don't like what I see in the mirror. I'm not in front of the mirror that often. And it started causing more depression. And so at a certain point it clicked, like, start small, but start. I had always pushed it off because I can do it tomorrow or I'll get control of this later. You know, I can eat this meal today, which I eat that same crap meal the next day and the next day and the next day. And so I sat down with my mom and really just kind of ironed out some things and to kind of focus and be better.
Well, and you know, like she doesn't want to lose you either.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I like to look at it as like, I need to be the best version of myself for everyone around me.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that requires certain things so I don't overextend myself or do more than I can actually can. But if I take care of myself, I have a bigger bandwidth. Does that make sense? Like if I'm taking care of myself, it's a lot easier to be a very empathetic and caring person to others. But if I don't do that first, it makes it very, the load gets heavier, if that makes sense.
And it does. And that was a big problem that I had was, because I know I am a people pleaser, was I put everybody else before me.
Yeah.
And so when I moved out back on my own, I made it a goal to start focusing on myself again. And it's a work in progress. And
well, look, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah. And
like you're talking about, like it's like brushing this is like the rest of your life. It's like brushing your teeth. It's something you're going to be, there's not going to be a day where exercise is not going to be beneficial to you unless, like, I don't know, it's causing extreme pain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're going to need it. So you have to look at it as a thing of like, this is something I'm going to do all the time because I want to be around for the people that I care about, right?
To your question you asked earlier, the one point that really kicked for me, I got on an airplane and I struggled to put the seatbelt on. I had it all the way to the end and I had never had that problem before. And that's when I was like, okay, this is getting out of hand.
Well, I think, there's a lot of people that get to that moment and they go, it's not a big deal. You know what I mean? So I think to recognize it as a moment is very powerful. Like you are given those moments.
It sucked to realize that moment.
Sure.
It was a punch in the face, but when when I had to ask for an extender seatbelt, I was like, no, you fucked this off too long.
That's good.
And so
that's exciting. You get to live your life now.
Yeah.
that's the way I look at it. Hey, I'm curiosity, do you do any meditation? Are you a meditator? That seems too touchy-feely for you.
No, it's not. So when I was working for LegalZoom, part of their benefits package was everybody got access to this app. And it was free because you were an employee. And so we were allowed, it's called Headspace.
Yeah.
And so I would do that.
You like it?
I got fired for saying what the hell on the phone. I deleted the app because then I had to pay for it. But when I first started doing it, I liked it. My problem is that I can't turn my brain off.
Yeah.
And so meditation always to me was in my head, like my opinion of it. I think it is great. I think it does wonders. I've seen people that do it. I have tried to, and I can't calm the internal demons.
So
I don't know how to shut it off.
So think of it this way. You might never not have your brain be like that, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to like clean it. You know what I mean?
Makes
Like
sense.
in the sense of like you might never feel comfortable with meditation, but it doesn't mean it's not working because of how it does offload things off your brain. But it can look like, I'm convinced it can look a lot of different ways. Like as an example for me, like, have you ever been like driving somewhere and you just start like thinking about things, maybe about your life or stuff like that. And you go, man, I never really thought of it that way. Or, man, I need to call my dad and tell him how much I love him. Or, you know, your brain just kind of like goes off. Does that ever happen to you? Okay. So in a really weird way, you are in a meditative state. You're kind of in between consciousness of like you're driving and your unconsciousness of like whatever's fucking happening in the back of your head.
Mm-hmm.
And not that you want to go driving every time you need to meditate. That's just an example of kind of how that stuff happens. And when you get a chance to like have it where like it happens like through like meditation, that feels really fucking cool.
I will tell you, I have a hard.
But you like most people I think feel the way that you feel.
Do you like to read?
Yes, but I only do audiobooks.
Okay.
Does that count?
No, it does.
Okay.
So I have a hard time reading because I will start reading
and your mind just drifts.
I will read something that reminds me of something in the past, and while I'm reading, all I'm thinking about is that story.
Yeah. Do you do audiobooks?
No, I would like.
Do you do podcasts? Do you not?
Yeah, no, I listen. Yeah, I got podcasts. Yeah.
So I mean, like it's like an audiobook. If it's read well, it's like a podcast. You know?
Yeah.
So, but I only do audiobooks. I can't read. My mind, like as soon as I start reading, I start drifting really fast, confusing words, not taking information. When I do it audio book, I take it into all of it. Like it's like, I mean, I'm listening. It's the way my brain works. So why fight it?
The only way I can read is, and it's being trained from San Marcos, I have to have a highlighter in my hand.
That does help.
Because now I'm not only focused with my eyes, my hands have to. And so I highlight the important parts of the chapter, the paragraph, whatever it may be.
But it's still such a pain in the fucking ass.
Yeah, fucking. I left school. I graduated for a reason.
Yeah. I went back like I was gonna like do something, and then like I was like, this is dumb.
You know, the funny thing is, when you apply for a job, someone will say GPA. I put the same. I don't even know what my GPA. I think my GPA is like a 2.8, 2.9.
I think mine was.
I always put 3.14 because of pi. They're not going to check.
I mean, okay, what jobs ask you for your GPA at this point?
It's funny. Some of them were like, if you
that's
go to
that's some old school shit
like,
right
when
there.
I see that, I'm like, do you really care? Because if I put 2.0 and I have 20 years of experience, you're gonna.
Well, this is kind of like weight loss. Like, you know, I've lost 15-ish pounds. You're like, my GPA was like 3.26.
I think GPA matters if you're going to be like an accountant statistician. I need to know you did good in accounting class. Well, let's just be real about that.
You know what? I'm gonna just counterpoint it and go, I don't think your GPA matters. That whatever job you get into, if you can do that job well, whether it's you learning on the job or what you already knew coming into it, I don't give a shit. Like if you're gonna do your job, do it well, do it with integrity. Like put some energy behind it.
I think the only thing that should matter is, did you graduate?
I think that's important.
And reason being, because it shows you stuck with something. 4, 5, 6 years. I don't care how long it took. If you went to San Marcos, it was probably 6. You probably left and came back.
It shows that you went to class.
Hell, I failed philosophy twice.
Man, I was like, dude, I was an art major. Like they were kind of like, come to class, don't come to class. But like at the end of the semester, you have to have art. Like we don't care. And so like, I mean, that's weird. Like, you know what I mean?
I failed philosophy one time. Well, first off, it was pledge semester, and it was at 8 a.m. on Friday.
Fault, yeah.
Well, it was 8 a.m. on a Friday.
Don't take those classes.
I didn't know that at the time. I was a freshman. And then the second time I failed it was
senior year.
The very next semester, and I got in a fight with the teacher because she told us to write an essay, but make sure you use, Socrates, all these people. So I knew all of their opinions and their things, but she said to write a paper in your opinion on why this. She failed me on my opinion. I got to fight with her because I said, how can you fail me on my opinion? If I'm hitting the points that they made about what they stood for and who they were and their philosophy, and I tied it into my story, how can you fail me? And
that sounds like a philosophy question.
And she goes, because I'm the professor. And I go, that's a shitty philosophy.
And then she gave you an A.
And she failed me. And then the third time I took it, my dad goes, Matt, sit down, shut the fuck up, and pass the class.
Yeah, trying to get out of
So
school.
I got a Tuesday, Thursday at like 1:30 or whatever.
Oh, perfect. You go have a beer at lunch. You know what I mean?
Just go to the student center, get some Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Burger King.
Get swipes from the pledges.
Oh, man. Those Paul cards or whatever they were.
Paul points.
Paul points. God bless.
I randomly have a flashback. Thank you for calling cats.
Oh, so.
Like I'll randomly hear somebody say cats and I hear that voice. Thank you for calling cats. Please enter your transaction code now. And I'm like, shut up. I just want this class.
Just trying to get to one class.
I just want to get into magic ritual religion. Okay. Just get me into that best class ever, by the way.
Sounds like it.
Oh, it's bad.
So did you have a good time?
Dude, this was fucking awesome. This was awesome.
Have you ever done a podcast before? Nope. You're spoiled now. You're going to be way spoiled.
Funny thing is me and James were talking about starting one.
Oh, really?
But it was more business oriented.
Well, I knew James was kind of running through town a couple of weekends ago. And I kind of like hollered at him. And I was kind of thinking like, man, maybe I'll ask him to come do this. But then like I got really sick and I was like, oh, it's not happening.
Just kind of sidebar in my opinion. You know what I think would be cool?
So
is a round table.
Oh yeah. I got big plans.
Okay. I think it'd be cool. Like if you did it, because I love the setup in here. So I wouldn't want to change the setup, but if it was a table and we were just throwing, posing questions and sitting around just the fellas chopping it up.
Okay. Look, I'm not this isn't spoiling anything. I don't think. My idea is that you ever watch that 70s show?
Mm-hmm.
When they're all like smoking weed in the basement and the camera rotates around to different people, we get a 360 GoPro and we set it in the middle of the table and then we sit around the table and then it rotates to us as we like talk.
So you have somebody on the dial?
No, it does it. You can
voice activated?
No, it records everything and then you can direct it like during and post, I think.
That's actually pretty gangster.
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun.
But no, this was because I had chatted with Paul and he was like, and even my parents, I told them I was doing this and they're like, are you nervous about this? And I go, I'm not nervous about it because I have no problem talking and it's with a good friend. And so, it's just boys chatting with a camera. Then, it's not like there's a camera crew sitting over your shoulder. Like, dude, get off me.
Well, also you kind of forget a little bit.
To be honest with you, I didn't know we started. Like when we just started chatting.
That's the best.
Like I completely was just, and then the only way that I knew was about you turned and looked. Well, you turned and looked down and I was like, fuck, we're recording? Well, I thought we were just chatting. I was waiting for him to say, and scene.
But what's so funny is that I stole this whole the brainstorm of this idea came from experience, and then like I just noticed like when Joe Rogan starts his podcast, like he has like an intro he does. But he kind of just starts talking like they just kind of start a conversation, and he might not even say the guy's name at the very beginning. And so I realized that like they probably just kind of like once it gets going, they find a place they're going to start, and that's kind of where they go. Mm-hmm. And so to cut down on people's like nerves and things, when people would come in, I would just kind of like start talking and just let them kind of relax a little bit and not really know if they're. And then I'll say certain things in a certain manner. And then you pick up, they're like, oh, we're actually kind of recording. Or you see me kind of look down, we're actually recording. But at that point, it's too late.
I'll tell you this.
It's like Venus flytrap. All right, got you.
I'll tell you this, you're a good host. You tie everything back. You pay attention.
What else am I doing, man?
But you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. There are certain podcasts, like, there's certain podcasts where it's just free flow. Like whatever topic comes up goes.
Yeah.
But even if it goes out here, you always bring it back. You keep the flow moving forward.
Well, I mean, like we're here to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Like I want to be like present as possible. Anyways. Well, man, I ask everybody to give me a hug. So you're going to have to get up and give me a hug before you get out of here. Thank you so much,
It was
buddy.
a pleasure, brother. This was awesome. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.